All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We certainly know that this is a major concern to Americans, certainly to all of us here in Louisiana, how to deal with the threat of terrorism and also other national security issues. So let's now delve into this area, and we'll start this line of questioning with Ms. Rachel Wulff. Rachel?
So at this point, we've been talking about, we know in this presidential election, we've been talking about it for, it seems like, years, the threat of ISIS. We've had numerous different attacks in our own country as well as abroad. Would you support a full deployment in the fight against ISIS?
Mr. Marsala.
Rachel, that's a very complicated question because ISIS is actually in 24 countries that I know of already. So we talk about a full deployment. Are we going to go into 24 countries? It's quite different than what we saw earlier. So I feel like first what we have to do is figure out how to immobilize them on their perimeter. Like in Africa, one of the things is they make their money off of elephant ivory and rhino horn. There's an opportunity there for us to defund them in different ways before we start going into this full-bore press on that. And in the end, I don't think the American people are going to digest that too easily because of what's happened. We spent $4 trillion recently, lost a lot of lives, but we may need to do something with that to establish a base, which is what John McCain had said years ago. We need to have a base and have it there like 50 years like we've done in Korea. And that's what we should have done to take care of ISIS. We also need to look at the border. We need that wall because it's going to be like Turkey and Syria here if we don't have our security going on on our own southern border.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marsala. Mr. Billiot?
You know, Ms. Rachel, as a Marine, I took an oath to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I continue to pursue that oath because we have lots of enemies here within our own borders. We need to secure our borders. Part of my platform is to heighten our security, strengthen our military. Now, when you say full deployment, that doesn't always mean boots on the ground. I'm for full deployment in fighting this enemy, which first starts with identifying the enemy. There's different rules of combat. There are different strategies that you must put into place. But I think we need to commit to defeating this terrorist organization. We need to get people involved. We lack leadership to get other countries to take in with us. This isn't just America's battle. This is a world battle. And we need leaders in the Senate. We need leaders throughout our country that will stand up and bring people together to fight a common foe so we can rid the world of this tyranny and oppression, and I would be the one to do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Billiot. Mr. Crawford.
Well, I think if the Joint Chiefs and all the generals decide that we need boots on the ground and they've got the intelligence to support that and they have a battle plan and they're going to say, here's where we're going to start, here's when we're going to start, here's what's going to happen, they lay out a timeline, internally, and they know that we can get that accomplished, then we need to go do it. ISIS is tearing up the whole Middle East, and we don't know how far it's going to spread and what other impacts it's going to have beyond what it's already had. We pulled out in 2011, and that was probably the worst thing we could have ever done. It was worse than George Bush going in the first place. So the whole area is disrupted, and somebody's got to fix it, and we can be a leader in that, but we certainly can't do it alone. There are so many other countries that have money and resources, and they all need to chip in. It is a worldwide problem. We need to solve it before it impacts everybody.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Hebert.
Rachel, what a great question for our time right now that we're dealing. Let me just say this. I'd be very, very cautious before I would send our sons and daughters in harm's way. But let's look at the technology we have today with drones and our jet fighters and other damages that we can actually cause. But let's look at the root of the problem. Because of Obama and Hillary Clinton's policies over the last 8 years, they have actually created the atmosphere for ISIS. What do I mean by that? These dictators like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, they weren't really the best dictators in the world, and I'm not taking up for them, but at least they brought their country stability, and we knew who to deal with. And so instead of going fighting them on their land, now they're actually fighting us on our land. And so I think their policies have now, by getting rid of these dictators, has caused this turmoil to where now ISIS is like this cancer that's spreading all over, and it's actually coming on our land. So I think the policy that we have to have is it can't just be that it's not a good dictator because it's not our dictator.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the final section of our debate, and this is sort of a catch-all category. It's government and domestic issues, covering a lot of different areas that the candidates can sort of delve into. And we'll start the line of questioning with Ms. Rachel Wulff. Rachel?
As a television reporter, I've seen this country become a tinderbox when it comes to race relations. We've seen outbursts, violent outbursts, people being shot and killed in places like Baltimore and Ferguson. We've seen it happen in Minneapolis, and we saw it actually this summer in Baton Rouge. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in this area in 7-8 years of covering this area. And of course, we saw a black man die at the hands of 2 white police officers. And then we saw a black man come into the area and shoot and kill several police officers and wound several others. What needs to be done, and what can you do as a U.S. Senator to improve race relations in not just this area, but in our country?
All right, thank you, Rachel. And we'll start the answers to this question with Mr. Crawford.
Well, I think we need to quit segregating ourselves internally within the country. We're all Americans, no matter where we came from, what our origin was, what our skin color is. But, you know, people like to label us. We have African Americans, European Americans, Latino Americans, just all, you know, put something in front of American. We're doing that to ourselves. You know, you see it in the news all the time. All these articles describe us as this part of America or that part of America. Hey, look, we're all here. We're in the boat together. We all should be rowing the boat together and getting along with each other, and quit trying to put, you know, artificial divisions on us and calling us different things. I think that's probably the first thing that needs to get done, is just for us to just, you know, stop for a minute and pause and just look at our neighbors or look at the coworkers or the people that work in the restaurant that we're sitting down to eat at. We're all Americans and we're here. Let's all work together and not be so divisive with all of that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Hebert.
Well, first, let me be clear. Racism has no place in America, okay? And having said that, is I don't think we ought to look at things as black and white. We ought to look at them as right and wrong and good and bad. And having said that, though, I want to be very clear. We need to have law and order. You mentioned about policemen. I mean, I think it was today or yesterday they had, you know, two other policemen just got killed. The ones all across the country. And let me take this time to thank all of the law enforcement people out there who put their lives on the line. But let me also point this out. You know, a generation or two ago, we tried separate but equal in this country, okay? And let me just be very clear to people living today. You cannot demand equality by also demanding to be treated special and separate. You can't have laws for a certain race of people that are different from other races of people. If you want to be equal, you can't be treated special. And so we need to be very, very clear about that we all play by the same rules.
Thank you, Mr. Hebert. Mr. Marsala.
Well, in line with that, actually, I want to thank Telemundo for helping put this on tonight. And we do have a lot of culture in America. I'm obviously Sicilian, and we just finished Italian History Month. We had German History Month with Oktoberfest. So celebrating our culture can be done in a means that is not where we're not dividing ourselves on. But at the same time, right now, we're seeing today in the news a sheriff in Iberia Parish is going to court for what he did in abusing prisoners. And we've seen the book Murder in the Bayou come out, where University of Houston just did a symposium on that as to how that worked with race relationships. So we have issues there. When I was mayor, we put in a PAL program, which was the Police Activities League, and we got the police on the streets interacting with people, so they built those bonds. And people need to know that the police aren't going to abuse them, and they're going to be held accountable when they do. And Louisiana right now has a bad rap. We've got 2 parishes that are really under investigation that fuel the fire of what's going on. So we need to take care of those and move on from there. And at the same time, we can enjoy each other. I mean, like, you know, the fact that we had a great carnival recently for Telemundo was wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Marsala. And Mr. Billiot.
Well, they all made some really good points. We're keeping separated. No one's being held accountable. But the thing that we need to look at is we need to bring family and community back. We as a society are ruining the family values. We're rewarding people for doing the wrong thing. We're punishing them for doing the right thing. You know, we need to bring family back. We need to make sure that we as a government foster an environment where family and community functions together. Because when you have respect and dignity and appreciation for your fellow man, none of these problems come up. We need to make sure, I'm an American Indian. Ain't nobody had it any worse than us. Look at what's happening in the Dakotas right now. We're still being treated like the enemy when we were the first people in this nation. So I don't want to hear that I'm being separated. I have an opportunity and a choice to make. I need to make my own path in my life, and I've chosen the path. And it's all about decisions, motivation, and desire. When we wake up in the morning, we have 2 choices. Am I going to do something positive to inflict my environment, or am I going to be negative? I choose to be positive.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another timeout, and when we come back, we'll have our concluding segment, and the candidates will give us their final statements. So it'll be 2 minutes each. So keep it right here. We'll be back with more with our U.S. Senate debate.